Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Wondergoal, the soccer betting podcast from the Action Network, presented to you by Bet365. I'm Michael Leboff. Joining me is BJ Cunningham, and we are going to break down the quarterfinals for Copa America. We already recorded our Euro 2024 quarterfinal as well with our friend Sam Ingram, so be sure to check that one out if you haven't already. But this one, it's Copa America. It's the quarterfinals, and it's Argentina and Ecuador to get things started off on Thursday, July the 4th. Argentina is the tournament favorite still. Not surprising that nothing's changed here. They've given us no reason to jump off that. They are minus 210 on the three-way line to beat Ecuador. Ecuador coming back at 7-1 on the three-way line. The draw here is plus 310. BJ, as you rightly pointed out, something to remind listeners is that these matches, there is no extra time. It goes right to a shootout. And the two advanced line, I should also note, is Argentina minus 500 and Ecuador at plus 350. This one looks pretty simple to me. I think that just the way Argentina's going, the mission they're on, the way that they are able to get ahead, shut things down, and just keep every match on their script. Outside of Saudi Arabia, every match for this team just stays on their script. So,
or Uruguay, Michael.
Yeah, that's true. It looks like it's just going to be Argentina. I think you can bet them. Maybe like an Argentina under same game parlay here, something along those lines is how it would look.
Yeah, I like Argentina. Same bet. I've made I think once, twice, or three times, or two or three times throughout this tournament. But Argentina to win nil is about minus 115 in that type of range. So these two faced off against each other in World Cup qualifying. It was the first match of these 2023 World Cup qualifiers, and Argentina beat Ecuador 1-0. Expected goals was 2.3 to 0.7 for Ecuador. What was glaring in that match is that Ecuador was trying to sit as deep as possible. They were not really trying to press Argentina. They weren't really trying to cause problems. And Argentina was able to do just kind of whatever they wanted once they got into Ecuador's final third. And they ended up creating all those chances as well. Ecuador for the match took 3 shots, all from distance. Never really threatened Argentina's goal. They had 5 counterattacking opportunities and weren't able to get a single shot in any of those counterattacking opportunities, which tells me, and it's something that's remained true throughout this tournament, is that Argentina is the best transition defense here at Copa America. They were a little bit shaky against Canada, but then against Chile and Peru, they conceded a total of 0.2 expected goals and very, very few shots as well. So, getting at a price of minus 115, I have the total projected very, very low for this match, 1.69. And Ecuador really hasn't even shown much offensively. Like, yes, they were very good against Jamaica. They were, good up until they got a red card against Venezuela. But then in a match that ended up, it was a specific situation, right? Because they knew Venezuela was winning and they just needed a draw against Mexico to go through. But early on in that match, the Venezuela and Jamaica match was essentially even, and there was a chance that Jamaica could have gone ahead. So, but they only created 0.4 expected goals in that match, and they really weren't that threatening offensively. So I think Ender Valencia might be back. Even if he is, I'm not sure that the Ecuador attack really has anything to threaten Argentina, just like what happened in that World Cup qualifier. So I like Argentina to win nil, minus 115. Messi was banged up. I think he's back in training. I think he's still going to play in this match, but Argentina should control this thing from start to finish. Ecuador's probably going to be playing for that 0-0 draw, just get this thing to penalties. But again, Argentina's been so good through this tournament, so I'm expecting them to control the match again, and hopefully they win now.
That brings us to Friday, July the 5th. There's one game each, Thursday, Friday, then 2 on the 6th. Venezuela and Canada. This one has Venezuela as the slight favorite on the three-way line, plus 155. Canada, plus 200. The draw here is plus 210. To advance, Venezuela, Canada is basically a coin flip with Canada as an even money underdog. Venezuela sitting at minus 125 at Bet365. I still like this Canada side a lot. I think that so much of our focus in the States was on the Americans and just the disappointment and all that. Whereas I think if we didn't have a horse in the race, if this was kind of like Euro 2024 where we're just observing as bettors, I think me and you would be. We did identify Canada before the tournament as this is a dark horse that can absolutely outrun its odds. I think we'd be like, we're in. Like, this team is still going. They haven't scored enough, sure, but like they did exactly what they needed to do to get through the group that they were in. They played it, I think, almost perfectly. Yeah, you'd like to see them beat Chile in that last match or score a goal or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just considering the circumstances, they're flying under the radar still a little bit here. They've got a manager who won't be afraid to go for it and kind of throw these South American countries for a loop. They are the only North American country, the only CONCACAF team in. Well, I guess sorry, I shouldn't say that. They're the only North American country in the tournament. Panama is also in CONCACAF, and they're in. But this Canada team, I still think has some teeth to it. I like to advance at plus 100. I think you could start a little bit of a rollover if you didn't bet the outright odds. They're still big, obviously, because they're going to have to go through Argentina in the next round in all likelihood, and then probably one of, or will almost certainly have to go through one of Colombia, Uruguay, or Brazil, and there'll be a big underdog of that match as well. They're 40-1 outright odds, obviously, still playable. Do you think that they can give Argentina a rabble if they get through, considering it'd be their second time playing them? Sure, but yeah, however you want to bet Canada here, I think you can go for it. They've just been really impressive.
Yeah, so if you liked Canada before the tournament, you should be incredibly happy with this draw, right? I know Venezuela won their group and they won all 3 matches. But if you dig individually into those matches, like, yes, of course they dominated Jamaica. Everybody did in this tournament, and everybody has for quite some time. Against Ecuador, they were getting outplayed before the red card. Ecuador created a couple huge chances that they got saved on. They obviously, ended up scoring when they were down in 10 men as well. Then they went and played Mexico. They beat them 1-0. Mexico created 2.8 expected goals in that match, and Venezuela barely even was able to create 1. And you've seen what this Venezuela team is like. They're a very, sit in a mid-high defensive block and then look to play in transition. If they try to get into a transition battle with Canada, and this is the kind of the bigger point, is Canada's a way more talented team than Venezuela is, right? Like, Venezuela, if you look at transfermarket.com, I think their total squad value is around 40 million. Canada is up at close to 200 million, right? Like, they are a way, way more talented team. They have pieces that can give them a lot of problems in transition, and especially where you can hit Venezuela is out wide. Jamaica was doing it a couple of, over and over again, and they just couldn't create chances off of it. But the likes of Tyjon Buchanan and Alphonso Davies, and having Jonathan David as a really good striker, and also having a really, really good central midfield pairing that can stop the ball, it's a really well set up Canadian side. And Marsh has proven himself to not get too aggressive given the circumstances, right? Because Canada, they have benefited in their matches against Peru and Chile, where against Peru, Peru got a red card in about a little after the 60th minute. Chile got a red card in the 15th minute. So they were playing up a man for a majority of those, and they played well up a man. And given the circumstances they had, where they only needed a draw, Marsh had them playing a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more conservatively. So in a match like this, which should be very back and forth, I am going to take the more talented transition team. And I really don't think they should be underdogs, especially given the fact of how bad Venezuela was against a similar CONCACAF team in Mexico. So credit to Venezuela for winning all 3 matches. But the one match that they played a similar team to Canada, they were not impressive at all. So I like them to advance as well at even money.
Both of us on Canada for that one. Let's move on to Saturday. We'll have, like I said, 2 matches, 6 p.m. Eastern time. First up is Colombia, who topped the group with by getting that draw against Brazil. They're minus 600 to advance past Panama, who advance at the expense of the United States. Panama's plus 400 to advance. They are the biggest underdog to advance in this in these quarterfinals. The 3-way line, too, obviously has Colombia as the favorite. They are minus 300 to win inside 90. Panama is 10-1. The draw is plus 75. I think you can, in a different way, you can, in a different way from the Argentina Ecuador match, I think you can look at Colombia to win in a route. However you want to do that, -1.5 is fine. I think Colombia team totals you can bet as well. It's just I just don't trust the Colombia. Excuse me, the Panama defense to be able to put up enough resistance to a Colombia team that's, I think, exceeded expectations here. They get a great draw, obviously. So I like Colombia. I think if you're going to be able to get, you can play Colombia, maybe Colombia in the over, Colombia to win by multiple goals, -1.5, etc. It's really, really hard to see Panama putting up enough resistance, especially with the way they play. Like, they're physical and they're going to commit a ton of fouls, and you can get away with that against the teams that they had in their group, like Bolivia and the U.S., obviously. But I think Colombia punishes them here, BJ. I think this is one-way traffic.
Yeah. I like over 2.5, -125, which I think is low. The over's hitting all 3 Panama matches in this tournament. And you kind of see, why, right? Because once you get into a back and forth transitional battle, which is essentially what Panama wants to do, right? Even against the United States, they were obviously playing up a man. But I think the bigger, the carbon copy match, right, is when they played Uruguay in the first match of the group stage, who plays a very similar style to that of Colombia. Uruguay scored early. Panama had to be more on the front foot. They had to get into a transitional battle with Uruguay, and you just saw the effect of a ton of chances at both ends. Colombia is going to do the exact same thing. They are going to come at Panama. Panama's probably going to sit deep early on, try to absorb that pressure and play in transition. But Colombia has proven themselves to be vulnerable in those type of transition attacks. They were really good against Brazil, who was trying to build out of the back. They were able to deploy their high press and cause them a lot of problems. But especially against Paraguay. Like, Paraguay caused some problems for Colombia in transition there. The bigger point, though, is that the totals with these Panama matches, I think, have been too low for quite some time. Since September of 2021, Panama matches are averaging 3.7 expected goals per 90 minutes. Throughout CONCACAF, throughout the Copa America here, throughout the Nations League, every single match for them has pretty much devolved into chaos, and it's usually game state dependent. So I like over 2.5, -125, and early goal is going to throw this into chaos. Colombia, as you saw against Brazil, is not the type of team, even when it's an even game state or in a situation where they just have to draw to get through. They're still not just going to sit back and let you do whatever you want. They're still going to come at you. They're still going to try to force high turnovers, and they're still going to try to beat you in transition. So I think this is going to be a very up and down type match. I projected about 3.3 goals for it. So I like over 2.5. And if you're somebody like me who has an Uruguay ticket right now, I think a bet on Colombia at 6-1 to win this tournament is worth a bet, because obviously we like them to get through in this round, right? They proved, they outplayed Brazil in that final match, a match they did not even really need to win. And as we'll get to in this Uruguay-Brazil match, if Brazil gets ousted here in the quarterfinals, then I think you'll get a 5 or 6-1 ticket to go to the final against Argentina, who will probably be about -200 would be my guess to lift the trophy if they face either Colombia or Uruguay. So you can get a decent hedge opportunity in the final with one of those two teams. But I think betting against Brazil to get to that final, I think, is a route here. If you already have that Uruguay ticket, I think a Colombia 6, or I think there's a 6.5 to 1 out there, I think would be worth a bet as well.
Okay, let's close it out with Uruguay and Brazil. And we were wrong. We both liked Brazil to win against Colombia. They did not. They now come into the match of the quarterfinals by some distance against Uruguay, who you feel a little bad for them. They win the group and get Brazil. It's essentially a pick 'em here. The three-way line has Uruguay as a slight underdog, +175, Brazil +150, the draw +230, and then to advance, Brazil -125. And Marcelo Bielsa's Uruguay sitting at even money. I want to bet Brazil. I think it's still an opportunity to buy low. I know you don't want to bet against your Uruguay future, so perhaps
they were bad against Colombia. It was bad. Yeah,
it's weird, but I they're still Brazil.
But I do agree. Yeah, it is. They are still Brazil. They are still the more talented team. They are still a very good defensive team. Like I mentioned in the last podcast, Colombia did create over 1 expected goal against them. That was just the third time since the September of 2021 that that's happened. But the problem is that Brazil really, really struggled playing through Colombia's pressure. In the end, Colombia had, passes per defensive action below 10, which is not something you see against a team like Brazil. Brazil couldn't get their midfielders in the right positions to play through that middle. It was just kind of funneling the ball out wide to Vinicius Jr. and Rodrigo and Rafinha and hope for some individual quality. They hit a free kick, which was great. Vinicius is going to be suspended for this match, which hurts Brazil, but I think people are overvaluing it because, Michael, it's not like Jeffrey Schlupp is coming in to play left wing, right? It's going to be Gabriel Martinelli or Savio, right? They're still very, very good left wingers. It's not this enormous drop-off that I think people are overweighting it as, right? It's not Pedro Neto being out for Wolves, So right. I agree that it is a chance to buy low in Brazil, though. Brazil has had significantly better underlying metrics than Uruguay for a long time now. And they're a way more talented team. Are they better? Are they set up better tactically? No. And that's essentially that's the argument and the case for Uruguay. But similar to England versus Switzerland, I think the pendulum may have swung a little bit too far towards the underdog after what we saw, the poor performance from Brazil. I will not be betting Brazil. I do have Brazil projected even money, which I thought was pretty fair, considering a large sample size. Uruguay did beat Brazil in qualifying before this tournament. Again, like I mentioned many times, that was a very different Brazil team under a different system that was set up to fail against a team like Uruguay. So I'm passing. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy and watch this. I hope Uruguay wins. I hope Bielsa wins and gets through to the next round. But if you're a neutral and you're somebody who just wants to bet on this match, unfortunately, I think it's a buy low opportunity on Brazil, like you said.
Yeah. I'd agree. Okay. Best bets now for Copa America quarterfinals. You can go first.
Yeah, Argentina to win nil, -115 against Ecuador. These two teams faced off against each other in World Cup qualifying in late 2023. Argentina won that match 1-0. They beat Ecuador on expected goals 2.3 to 0.7. But what was interesting in that match is that they limited Ecuador to just 3 total shots. And Ecuador had 5 counterattacking opportunities and didn't get a single shot off those counterattacking opportunities because Argentina is the best transition defense in this tournament. They've proven that against both Peru, against Chile. Both of those teams have created a combined 0.2 expected goals against them. Argentina is the best team in the world at controlling matches, keeping it on what they want to do. They're going to be able to play through Ecuador's low block, which has been okay throughout this tournament, but Ecuador's offense really has proven not to be very effective, especially in their last match against Mexico. They only created 0.4 expected goals. So I really worry about how Ecuador is actually going to create the chances in this match, and I think they're just going to try to see this out until the final. But given how that match went against Argentina in World Cup qualifying, I'm not sure they're going to be able to limit Argentina to under 1 or even under 1.5 expected goals. So I like Argentina to win though at a low price of -115.
I like Canada to advance at even money against Venezuela. Venezuela was really impressive in the group stage. 3 wins from 3 matches, a +5 goal difference, 6 goals for, 1 goal against, but they did play in the softest group in this tournament alongside Ecuador, Mexico, and Jamaica. Meanwhile, Canada 1-1-1 in the group stage and only 1 goal scored in those 3 matches, but it was the goal that got them through. They get the win over Peru 1-0, then are able to hold Chile to a 0-0 draw. That's exactly what they needed to do. So they get through the group with a -1 goal difference. And if we're being honest, like their match against Argentina was really impressive, even in a 2-0 defeat. And I think that we're now looking at them getting underrated here against a team in Venezuela that none of us really fancied to be in the same class as even the Ecuadors and Mexico's, Chile's of the world. And Canada has already proven that they can rub shoulders with them, trust the manager in this situation. I think Canada should be the favorite to get through here, but they're not. I like Canada here. I think that they have a real opportunity to cause some chaos still in this tournament. So we're going to back the Canadians over July 4th weekend, of course. So Canada for me, Argentina for BJ. We'll see if those two teams meet in the semifinals. Thank you for listening to Wondergoal. Thank you to our sponsors, Bet365. Thank you to our producer, Noah. Thank you to all that have listened along to our Euro 2024 episodes. We will see you with both a Euro 2024 semifinal preview and a Copa America semifinal preview on the other side of the weekend. Best of luck with all your bets.